EVO is this week. So, and that is the Evolution Fighting Game Tournament that happens every year around this time. It is EVO is now a Sony-owned subsidiary, correct? Am I right on that? Right.
Yeah, Sony ended up buying them up after the whole controversy of Mr. Wizard sexually sexually abusing a very, very, very underage
Ugh.
tournament participant back during the early foundings of EVO, apparently. So,
Ugh.
yeah, just it was a nuclear time for EVO because you had commentators dropping out back in 2020 and just everyone was just like, yeah, I can in good conscience commentate for a tournament that's got a sexual abuse problem in its past and whatever. And to dogpile on top of that, the Super Smash Brothers community, they were going through their own sort of controversy too, where
Right.
you had a bunch of the major tournament officials and also famous commentators who were sexually grooming younger participants. In particular, one of the ones that I think got like just things really spotlighted in a bad light was commentator Senpai, and she was apparently sexually grooming a 14-year-old boy, and just that was bad because she got major spotlighting, I think, in 2019 or 2018, doing commentary on one of the Super Smash Brothers finals. So that sort of tore that community apart, and just um, it was just a mess in general. So
Ugh.
yeah, that's the only reason why Sony has their hand in it, because just the Evo group were just like, well, shit. Our organization's falling apart. We might need an exit plan.
Yeah. God, man, ugh. That's a nasty story.
Yeah.
But that led to Evo. Evo didn't have a tournament last year, or did they have it only online? Because I remember them
Um,
taking a few years off after all that, right?
well, in 2020, they basically, I guess, canceled things because it was going to be an online series due
Mm-hmm.
to the pandemic starting to kick off and everything. But after all the controversy that was just flaring up and everything, um, there was no tournament that year. And then in 2021, they had returned to an online only format. But I think even that had its issues with rumors that some people were having friends or other competitors smurf around or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm not too sure because I honestly can't even remember Evo 2021 too great.
Yeah. So basically, this is a return to form after being off on the past couple of years, and from what I've gathered, I watched a little bit of it, but it looked like it was back to, I guess, what it was before the controversies. Lots of people who were in the Mandalay Bay and Las Vegas. It looked like it was really crowded. People were hyped being there, and it turned out to be a good tournament. We don't normally cover like a pro tournament, but we're covering EVO specifically because it is essentially a mini E3 for fighting games, essentially. So a lot of announcements happen, a lot of things are talked about throughout the tournament, and some interesting things were talked about in the EVO tournament. Some things were teased, such as Tekken 8. We're not sure if that's confirmed or not, but it seems like they teased that it's coming. What else, really? And
Really, I want to say just I
Fatal
know
Fury?
well, to sort of kick things off, uh, Skullgirls did announce that their final character, Marie, is coming out soon. So she got sort of a teaser trailer, which naturally made the Skullgirls community just oh so happy.
Yeah.
So there was that.
hmm But they also announced they also announced that there's going to be a new Garrow or Fatal Fury game coming, which as it's just been after 23 years, right? That there's been a new Garrow. So
Yeah.
That's
Because the last one was in 1999, Garrow Mark of the Wolves
right.
on Dreamcast, I think.
Wow, yes, that was. That's a rare game to get right now. So yes,
Yeah.
that is right. Okay, because I remember playing it when it was on Xbox Live. That's when I first played it. So yeah,
Yep.
okay. Again, normally this isn't something we really talk about because unless it's a big announcements that will have a profound effect on the industry, we just kind of don't cover it really. But we're covering this for one reason. A lot of games announce something that they all have in common with. And Zero, what is it that a lot of these games announced at EVO this year?
Um, Rollback was announced for Samurai Showdown, uh, Dragon Ball Fighters,
Yep.
and uh, not quite Rollback, but somewhat, I guess, Rollback adjacent is King of Fighters 15 will be getting crossplay
Mm-hmm.
in early 2023.
Right. And for those of you who don't know what rollback is, it's a type of netcode where it drastically improves the online experience for people playing these fighting games. Usually it's delayed based, right? Where I guess they go back if something happens within the connection, they go back maybe 5 or 6 frames in the
Well,
past.
to,
Go ahead and explain it.
to explain it, so delay-based netcode, which is the norm in a lot of games, is where it uh, it it tries to read the inputs as fast as it can, but if one participant is delayed and their action is significantly different than the game state, then the game will just literally delay itself back to the point where things got completely skewed off the rails.
Yeah.
And this is bad for fighting games because if if the if the person who has the worst latency has significant delay, then that could mean you could have a completely different play state on the whole situation. One of the worst examples of delay-based netcode was the original release of Killer Instinct back on Xbox One in 2013. Um, the code was so bad that you had cases where people got completely desynced from
Mm.
how bad the netcode was. So you would have one person who was playing a completely different state, they would win the match, but yet you would have the other player that was technically the loser, but they had a much worse latency and they were playing a completely different game, but in their version of the game, they won.
Yeah.
So it was completely terrible. And it was from that point on, everyone was just like, yeah, we have to demand better from the fighting game community. We have to demand that games go with rollback. And that's where this whole rollback movement sort of started.
Right.
And rollback is different, where the rollback system is where you have a adjudication server that basically tries to make advanced predictions of the game state. And if the predictions are correct, the game just proceeds on as normal. Now, if there's a state where things are predicted incorrectly, at that point it will roll back the state of the game to where things got completely desynced and then continue on. And
Ah.
typically, when that happens, it's not a significant rollback. It's maybe just a couple frames. It's just like, oh, shit, our judging server predicted wrong. Let's roll the game back 5 frames to where things got messed up, and we'll continue from there.
Mm.
And typically, with 5 frames, it's so minute that most people won't notice it. Most people who play fighting games will, though, but at that point, 5 frames is not significantly jarring.
Basically, this implementation is going to drastically improve the online. Now, most would think that they would implement this on, let's say, a newer title, let's say King of Fighters, that just came out and is still selling battle pass, still selling season passes. The thing that happened at EVO is they announced it for 2 games that are essentially what they call feature complete. These are games that are not having new DLC. They're not going to get new income off of it. They just announced the implementation, which is going to come in like 2023 for I think both games, that essentially is going to drastically improve the gameplay for free, essentially. So
Yeah,
the
and
go
what
ahead.
makes it really interesting is for the Dragon Ball Fighters announcement, you had the literal producer of the game. Her name is Tomoko Hiroki. She literally came on stage and basically said, "There will be no further DLC coming." The literal last character for Dragon Ball Fighters was um, Android 21 in her lab coat. And we will no longer be doing any further balance changes either. So the game is literally not seeing any further balance changes nor DLC. So
Right,
no maintenance, no extra monetization, literally 100% done.
right. So a lot of I certainly thought that they wouldn't bother with those games, do that with those games if they're not going to get more money. And a lot of people thought that. So that's why this was really a big surprise that they are putting more money down to improve the netcode. Which I want to get your take on this. Why do you think they decided to go to these now complete games and drastically improve the online like this when they're not going to get any more money to come afterwards?
As far as Samurai Showdown's case, my presumption is that SNK SNK's business is literally fighting games at this point. They have a couple of mobile games that they are running and things like that, and I have not looked into their mobile game numbers, so I can't really exactly comment on that. But um, I can say that just they are owned by a majority stakeholder that is Chinese, and this particular Chinese stakeholder is a real big fan of their fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
So my presumption is maybe they're trying to sort of turn the tide on the opinion of their games to appease their stakeholder. So that's mere speculation for me. I can't say that's 100% accurate or not,
Okay.
so don't quote me on
Okay.
that.
My essential take was that when I heard it and I thought about it was, oh, they're planning on continuing these franchises, but they're not going to have a new game yet until maybe at the very least 2 years from now, maybe more. So they just basically said, well, we want to have a good mindset for players when we announce the new game. So why don't we this is why they implement it, because the problem with both Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Fighters, and with especially Samurai Showdown was the netcode was trash. It was terrible. Like I used to play Dragon Ball, not seriously, but a lot. I played it a lot online, and always would have problems. Like no matter what. Like either a lot of skipping, a lot of issues playing the game. So when that was announced, to me it was like, oh, you're trying to rebuild the brand so people think of it fondly when the new game comes out, and it's a good idea because what people are when people essentially are going to remember your game by is, oh, but that had terrible online, and then you announce, oh, it's going to have rollback. The first thing you're going to think is, okay, wait until it comes out, and then if it's good, then I'll buy it. Which for a lot of people is essentially they're not going to buy it. Essentially, so if they do it for the old games now, and it turns out to be very good, then it's going to be in their heads when they go to purchase the game later. Is, oh wait, they improved the netcode drastically. I played it; it was great, so I don't have to worry about that. So, and I like the game, so yeah, I'll definitely buy it, and that's it. I think that is essentially what the business plan is. They're putting a little more money into the old games now, so when it comes time for that sequel, then they're going to go ahead, and then it's going to be positive vibes onto the sequel that will probably mean more sales to them. Is my opinion of what I think the mentality of it was.
Yeah, so and that's likely a fair thought too, because one of the things that Hiroki-san had alluded to in her announcement about Rollback coming to Dragon Ball Fighters is that the feature will not be coming to PS4 and Xbox One, but for players on those particular platforms, there would be an upgrade path.
Right.
So my thought is that while the game is feature complete, it sounds like that they're prepping for a, um, I guess, complete edition that will be eventually be coming to um, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X.
Right.
And for anyone worrying about the PC side of the argument, you don't have to worry about it because uh, PC players will be getting this as a digital update, but here's the fun part. Um, for PC players, you'll have the choice between going to the delay version by, I'm assuming, just a beta tab switch in Steam, or you can just proceed with the brand new rollback version. So if you're sadistic enough to put yourself through the horrors of playing the delay-based version, then yeah, sure, knock yourself out.
That makes no sense. Why would you do that? But okay, sure. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. But yeah, like this is brand management essentially. It's basically we want everyone to have a positive feeling when we announce the new game, and that essentially is it. I don't think they're gonna. A lot of people started thinking, oh, they're gonna do this, and then a little on down the road, they're gonna announce new DLC for these games, which I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
I think.
especially with Dragon Ball Fighters, because um, people tend to forget that while Arc System Works did develop the game, they are not the IP holders. The
No.
IP holders are Toei Animation and Bird Studios. And for those who need a little bit of a history lesson, both Toei Animation Studios and Bird Studios, they are notorious on being very miserly and very cheap.
Mhm.
So to even get the budget to get rollback added, that was probably stratospheric.
Mhm.
So to think that there are more characters on the horizon, that's that's stretching a little bit much, and especially with the fact of how cheap both Toei Animation and Bird Studios are. So I mean, it was I couldn't imagine further asking for money after going, hey, so can we get more money to do this rollback thing? And then coming back and turning around and going, hey, so can we also get, more money and your permission to add these following characters?
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, this essentially, like I said, this is pure brand management. They want to have a positive outlook for when the new game comes out, so people will know that hey, the online will be just fine when the new game comes out. So here you go. Don't even worry about it, and that's it. I think that's my opinion on it. But this is great news because this also, in my opinion, this also pretty much gives no excuse to any other developer who's developing fighting games to not have rollback netcode. Like if you're having older games that are feature complete, that are not selling DLC or not seeing DLC, and they are turning around on their old games, putting in new netcode, and seeing this as a requirement, there really is no excuse anymore to be a fighting game maker and not have rollback. Because then
Well,
at that point, if good,
the funny thing about SNK is the fact that they've been working with Code Mystics for a long time,
that's right.
retrofitting rollback into some of their older games. Hell, two of their old releases that recently got ports to modern day PCs, PS4, and Xbox One are basically King of Fighters 98 and King of Fighters 2002 Ultimate Match.
Hmm.
They recently got netcode updates to get rollback, which is insane because you have to consider this. Just King of Fighters 1998. Just not not many normal people would run to a game like that. And same for Ultimate Match 2002.
Yeah.
No one's flocking to that, but yet here's SNK going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and just improve the netcode on these old games, and let's work with our longtime partner Code Mystics to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and to kind of your point of just no game should really avoid the rollback netcode topic. There was one big loser during the EVO announcements,
Grand
and
Blue.
yes,
Yeah.
and what makes it even more ironic is the fact that with with Grand Blue not getting a rollback announcement, they seem to have forgotten what happened during last year while the COVID lockdowns were going on. They had a tournament series, which was sponsored by Psy Games, who is the IP owner of the Grand Blue Fantasy IP. And during these online remote only tournaments that were going on, their tournament scene nearly collapsed on itself because just you had some of these matches that were just outright awful. Just tons of teleporting, tons of jumping of the frames and everything, and just straight out bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you can't have professional tournaments when the netcode is that bad, because
Oh yeah,
it should just be, here are these two people. They are gonna do their best, and whoever wins wins. And there shouldn't be a question as to why, unless one of them cheated. But then when you add
yeah,
the element of bad netcode, it not only is unfair to the competitors, it's unfair to the people who are watching it too, because then they're sitting there going, "Oh, are we sure that the X person won? We don't know if the netcode screwed up at that point." So it's terrible. So yeah.
yeah. And it gets even further funny because while this was happening with Grand Blue, the same thing also happened with Samurai Showdown. It just I remember one major match for or Samurai Showdown got so bad that basically both competitors for this particular tournament that were in the top eight, they literally just forfeited. They just said, "We refuse to play this. We're
Mm.
not doing this. This is bad." And here we are, just a year later. SNK has learned its lesson and has said, "Hey, rollback is coming to Samurai Showdown." But this is where it gets really ironic for Grand Blue. So during, or it was either before or after the Grand Blue top eight, they put out like a giant sort of PR video, and PR video talks about the third person action game that was partly developed by Platinum Games, and Platinum Games has stepped away from this, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, the game's running great and everything." And of course, everyone was just kind of paying attention to this PR video going, "Please, dear God, announce rollback. Please, dear God, announce rollback." And instead of getting that rollback announcement, what they get? An announcement that Psy Games is going to be sponsoring a new tournament series that's going to be focused on playing matches online.
Oh God.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, with Evo, the principal announcement I think that we should get across, and what I guess should be discussed in this, is basically that it looks like the fighting game industry is finally realizing the importance of rollback, and that it has to be implemented in all their games in order for it to succeed. I will say, as a side note, for SNK for King of Fighters 15, good God, fix your matchmaking. I
Yeah,
want to play your game, I do, but if the matchmaking is still screwed after 6 months, I don't care if you put crossplay in there. If matchmaking sucks, it's not worth playing. So I hope they fix that. So yeah.
yeah, and it especially burns me too because From what I've been reading for King of Fighters 15, just playing local matches just on the same console. Apparently, the game's super solid, just really good, really fun, and just extremely solid.
Mhm.
But the minute you try to sit yourself down to do some just random matches, some matchups take almost 30 minutes to connect.
Yep.
And then the worst part is, let's say you want to run a private lobby with you and your friends, it could take thirty minutes to an hour for you and your friends to connect to a private lobby that you've set up.
Yeah. It's awful.
And yeah, and it's a total bummer too because I believe for the Xbox Live Gold promo deals that are going on this week, uh, Microsoft has King of Fighters 15 discounted pretty hard. That the base game you can get it for I think about $37, and then for the deluxe edition with Season Pass #1, that's a grand total of like $51.
Mm.
And as a longtime King of Fighters fan, part of me is almost, keyword almost, just itching to throw down the cash and go, well, they've announced that crossplay's coming. Maybe I'll throw down cash and just say, all right, you've got crossplay coming. Maybe by that point you'll also get matchmaking fixed, but also I've seen some commentary from the King of Fighters community going, well, you might want to prepare your clown makeup because for all we know, just crossplay comes out and it'll be something of a no-brainer surprise of, oh, by the way, we didn't fix the matchmaking, so it's still terrible.
Yeah. That is what I'm worried about. Like, for them not to even talk about that issue, but say, hey, this is coming. Like, yeah, great. But if matchmaking's not working, then it really does not matter. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it looks like fighting game companies are essentially putting more money down on their infrastructure to improve their games online, which is great, and it's gonna do wonders for the fighting game community and fighting games in general, especially if they decide to make more of their games free to play, so more people can play them. So
yeah, and to kind of round off some of the announcements, you had Melty Blood Type Lumina. They announced pretty much their plans going forward. The game is getting a major rework, and one of the big complaints was that with the shield mechanic was just busted or overpowered. So they're changing it so the shield mechanic is now a high risk, high reward thing. But sort of the fun side of things is one of the DLC characters they announced was Neko Arc, which is a cartoon cat version of one of the main characters for the primary roster of characters, and it was kind of one of those things that just no one expected this particular character to show up
yeah,
until maybe close to the end of the DLC run. But the the character was revealed, and of course the crowd sort of lost their mind, and of course it's also reflected on the recent Steam reviews too, because I can't tell you how many comments I've seen in Type Lumina's recent Steam reviews going, "Yeah, I bought this because Neko Arc," and then to kind of tie in with the whole Fate universe, Mash Curie Light from Fate Grand Order, she joins the roster as well too, and both of these characters will arrive during their major update patch sometime later on this year. And then another game that has been seeing a lot of popularity has been Guilty Gear Strive, and towards this fall they'll be getting a crossplay update, which will allow PC, PS4, PS5 to finally group together and play together. And that game has particularly fantastic netcode as well too. So having crossplay with fantastic netcode is a great way to keep the community alive.